The dust bunnies under the king-sized bed in the bridal suite were starting to tickle my nose, and I had to press my hand firmly over my mouth to keep from sneezing. I was lying flat on my stomach, my expensive white Vera Wang wedding dress crushed against the hardwood floor of the luxury Chicago hotel, the delicate lace catching on the rough fibers of the rug. It was ridiculous. I knew a 30-year-old woman hiding under a bed on her wedding night like a child playing hide-and-seek, but I wanted to see the look on Damien's face. I had this whole scene played out in my head. He would walk into our bridal suite, loosen his tie, maybe call out my name in that soft, confused voice I loved so much, Aurora, Rory, and then surprise. I'd roll out, probably looking like a mess of tulle and silk, and we'd collapse onto the mattress, laughing. It was supposed to be the start of our happily ever after. We had just spent the last 6 hours dancing, cutting cake, and shaking hands with people I barely knew. Now, finally, it was just us. Or so I thought. The heavy mahogany door creaked open. I bit my lip, suppressing a giggle, my muscles tensed, ready to spring up. But the footsteps were wrong. They weren't Damien's confident, heavy strides. These were sharp, staccato clicks. Clack, clack, clack. High heels. Expensive ones. I froze. Through the small gap between the duvet and the floor, I saw a pair of silver designer stilettos stop right in the middle of the room. I recognized those shoes immediately. They belonged to Lorraine, my brand new mother-in-law. Yes, Janice, I'm in the suite now. Lorraine's voice rang out, sharp and imperious. She wasn't whispering, she sounded like she owned the place. She put her phone on speaker and tossed it onto the bed, the very bed I was hiding under. The mattress springs groaned above my head, pressing down slightly, suffocating me in my own hiding spot. Did they leave yet? A tiny female voice asked from the phone. Damien is downstairs handling the final bill with the caterers. And the girl, well, who knows where she is? Probably in the bathroom fixing her cheap drugstore makeup. Lorraine scoffed. She began pacing around the room, the clack 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 of her heels echoing like gunshots in my ears. My heart hammered against my ribs. The girl. Cheap makeup. Just hours ago, this woman had hugged me, tears in her eyes, welcoming me into the family. She had called me a blessing. So, is it done? The voice on the phone asked. It's done, Lorraine said. The sound of a lighter flicking followed by a long exhale. Smoke drifted down to the floor, the acrid smell of menthol invading my sanctuary. The ring is on the finger. The license is signed. We've got her locked down and she has no idea. Please? Lorraine laughed, a dry, cruel sound. Aurora is a simpleton, a library mouse. She thinks she hit the jackpot landing my son. She has no idea she's just a glorified placeholder. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands turned ice cold. What was she talking about? But Lorraine? The voice on the phone continued and I realized with a jolt it was Tiffany, Damien's childhood friend who had been at the wedding in a dress that was far too tight. Are you sure about the condo? If they divorce, won't she take half? We have it all mapped out, Lorraine replied, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone that made my stomach churn. They lived together for a year, maybe 18 months tops, enough to make it look real. Then Damien starts the complaints. We make her look unstable. Or better yet, we make her life so miserable she leaves on her own. We have the receipts showing Damien paid the down payment. We'll claim the condo in court. She won't have the money for a decent lawyer. I covered my mouth with both hands now, tears stinging my eyes. The condo, our beautiful penthouse on the Gold Coast, overlooking Lake Michigan. It was legally in my name, but I had let Damien handle the transaction to boost his ego, to make him feel like the provider. She's practically an orphan, Lorraine continued, kicking off one of her shoes. It landed inches from my nose. Her father is some retired nobody living on a pension in Florida. She has no support system. Once we take the assets, she'll go back to whatever rental apartment mentality she came from, and Damien will finally be free to marry someone with actual class. Someone like you, Tiffany. I lay there, my body trembling so hard I was terrified the floor would vibrate. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a heist. My marriage, my love, my life, it was all just a long con to steal a piece of real estate. Suddenly, Lorraine stopped pacing. "Wait," she murmured. She walked towards the bed. I saw her feet turn towards me. She crouched down. I stopped breathing. My heart stopped beating. Through the gap, I saw her hand reach out. Her long manicured nails scraped against the hardwood floor inches from my face. She picked up something. My pearl earring. I must have dropped it when I crawled under. She held it up, inspecting it. "Cheap junk," she muttered, tossing it onto the bedside table. "Probably plastic." She stood up again, and I nearly fainted from relief, but the relief was short-lived. The door handle turned. "Mom?" Damien's voice called out. "In here, sweetheart," Lorraine cooed, her tone instantly switching from cold predator to doting mother. My husband walked into the room, the man I had vowed to love and cherish not 3 hours ago. I waited, praying, hoping against hope that he would tell her to leave, that he would say something to defend me. Instead, he sighed and flopped onto the bed right above me. "Is she here?" he asked. "No," Lorraine said, "probably lost in the hallway. Listen, we need to talk about the bank transfer before she gets back." "I know, Mom. I know," Damien groaned. "But can we do this tomorrow? I have to pretend to be excited to consummate this marriage tonight, and it's going to take a lot of energy." Something inside me broke. It wasn't a crack. It was a shattering. The naive, happy Aurora died in that dusty darkness under the bed, and something else began to wake up. "It's just for a year. Damien," Lorraine pressed. "Think about the Gold Coast penthouse. Think about the equity. Think about Tiffany." "I know. It's just, she's so boring, Mom. She's so plain." "I know, baby," Lorraine soothed him. "Tiffany is champagne. Aurora is tap water." Tap water. That single word hurt more than the financial betrayal. Tap water, bland, free, available to anyone. I had dimmed my light for him. I had hidden my designer wardrobe, my knowledge of fine art, my connections to senators and CEOs, all to make him feel comfortable. I became tap water because I thought he wanted simple, pure love. "Exactly," Damien laughed. A cruel sound that matched his mother's. "Tap water. Lukewarm tap water. Just get through tonight," Lorraine said. "I'm leaving. I took the spare key from her purse earlier. I'll let myself out." She took my key. She went through my purse. The violation made my skin crawl. I watched Lorraine's silver heels clack towards the door. Damien's dress shoes followed. "Good night, Mom. Thanks for everything. Anything for my boy. Just remember the plan. 1 year, then you're free." The door clicked shut. Silence returned to the room. But it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, charged with the energy of my shattered life. I waited 5 minutes. 10. I needed to be sure they were gone. Slowly, painfully, I wiggled out from under the bed. My body ached. My beautiful dress was gray with dust. I stood up and caught my reflection in the mirror. My hair was disheveled. My makeup smeared, but my eyes were clear. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. A cold, mechanical calm took over. It was the same calm my father used when he was about to hostilely take over a rival energy firm. I walked to the closet. I stripped off the wedding dress, the symbol of my stupidity, and threw it into the corner. I pulled on a pair of jeans and a hoodie. I had packed for the morning after brunch. I grabbed my purse. Lorraine had indeed taken the spare house key, but my car keys were still there and my black card. I opened the door to the hallway. It was empty. Damien must have actually gone down to the lobby or the bar to work up the courage to sleep with tap water. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs, running down 12 flights in my sneakers. I burst out into the cool Chicago night air, found my beat-up Ford Focus, which had a racing engine under the hood, my one little indulgence, and tore out of the parking lot. I wasn't going to the condo. I wasn't going to cry in a hotel. I punched a number into my car's Bluetooth system. "Dad," I said when he answered on the second ring. "Aurora. Is everything okay?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "You were right about everything. I need you to wake up, Harper. I'm coming to the estate. We're going to war." The drive to the suburbs usually took 40 minutes. I made it in 20. I pulled up to the massive iron gates of the Sterling estate. The security camera recognized my license plate, and the gates swung open silently. As I drove up the winding driveway lined with century-old oaks, I felt the shedding of Aurora, the library assistant. I was returning to my kingdom. My father, William Sterling, CEO of Vanguard Energy, was waiting on the front porch, wearing his silk robe, a cigar unlit in his hand. Next to him was Harper, my best friend and the fiercest corporate lawyer in Chicago. She was wearing pajamas but had a laptop open on the outdoor table. I slammed the car door shut and walked up the steps. Dad looked at me, the dust on my hoodie, the hard set of my jaw, and he didn't say, "I told you so." He just opened his arms. I hugged him, and for exactly 10 seconds, I let myself be a little girl. I let one sob escape. Then, I pulled back. "They planned it," I said, my voice crisp. "Damien, his mother, and Tiffany. They want the condo. They want to drain the accounts. And Dad, they called me tap water." I placed my phone on the glass table and hit play. I had recorded everything from under the bed. In the quiet night air, Lorraine's voice sounded even more demonic. We listened to the whole thing. The tap water comment, the plan to make me miserable, the embezzlement of the wedding money. When it finished, my father's face was a mask of fury. He snapped the unlit cigar in half. "I will bury him," he growled. "I will buy the subsidiary he works for and fire him. I will have that mother of his evicted by noon." "No," I said, looking at the city skyline glowing in the distance. "That's too fast. That's too easy. If we attack now, they play the victim. They'll say I'm a crazy, jealous wife. I want to crush them completely. I want them to think they won, and then I want to pull the rug out so hard they never stand up again." Harper cracked her knuckles, a wicked smile spreading across her face. "I like where this is going. What's the plan?" "First," I said, "the condo. They think they have a claim because the money flowed through his account. We need to lock that down." "Easy," Harper said, typing furiously. "Since the deed is in your name, we create a post-nuptial agreement. We frame it as an insurance requirement for high-value properties on the Gold Coast. We tell Damien that because of the building's liability clauses, the insurance company requires a clear title holder. We slip in a clause that waives all his marital interest in the property in exchange for, let's say, a lower insurance premium." "He's greedy," I added, remembering how he counted pennies on our dates. "If we tell him it saves him $500 a month, he'll sign it without reading." "Done," Harper said. "I'll have the papers ready by morning." "Second, financials," my father said. "You need to separate your assets. And I'm going to run a forensic audit on his work at Vanguard." If he's stealing from you, he's stealing from me. And Tiffany, I said, my voice dropping. I need to confirm her involvement. I need to get close to her. I'm going back there. You're going back to the hotel? Dad asked, worried. Yes. He called me tap water. He thinks I'm stupid. I'm going to go back there, act like the dumb, clumsy wife he thinks I am. I'm going to make his life a living hell for the next month, and I'm going to gather enough evidence to send him to jail, not just divorce court. I looked at the sunrise starting to bleed purple over the horizon. He wanted a library mouse, I said. He's about to find out he married a rat trap. I drove back to the hotel just as the sun broke over Lake Michigan, casting a shimmering, deceptive gold over the city. I parked my Ford Focus, the humble car that Damien despised, and sneaked back up the stairs. My heart was pounding, not with the flutter of a new bride, but with the steady rhythm of a soldier crossing enemy lines. I changed back into my silk pajamas, tousled my hair to look slept in, and crawled into the king-sized bed next to Damien. He smelled like stale champagne and deception. He stirred, opening one eye, his face puffy from sleep and greed. "Rory?" he mumbled, using the nickname I used to find endearing but now sounded like a slur. "Where were you?" "I couldn't sleep," I whispered, giving him a wide, vacuous smile, the smile of a woman whose biggest worry is organizing a bookshelf. "I was just so excited about our future, honey." I went down to the lobby to get some water. I was planning our life in my head. He groaned and rolled over, turning his cold back to me. "That's nice, babe. Go to sleep." I stared at the back of his neck, visualizing a target painted there. "Sleep tight, Damien. It's the last peaceful rest you'll ever have." The next morning, the performance of a lifetime began. I woke up before Damien and ordered room service, the most expensive items on the menu: lobster benedict, truffle fries, a bottle of Dom Pérignon, and a tower of pastries. When the cart arrived, the smell of decadence filled the room. I signed the bill for room 402 with a flourish. Damien woke up, rubbing his eyes, and nearly fell out of bed when he saw the spread. "Whoa, what's all this?" "Celebration breakfast," I chirped, popping a chocolate-covered strawberry into my mouth. I figured since we have all that cash gifts from the wedding guests, we should treat ourselves. We're rich for a day, right? Damien flinched. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. That cash was already mentally allocated to Lorraine's bank account. Rory. We need to be careful with that money," he stammered, sitting up and looking at the bill with horror. "Mom, we agreed to save it for a rainy day, or invest it." "Oh, don't be a spoil sport." I poured a glass of champagne and shoved it into his hand. "I also booked us a couple's massage at the hotel spa. It's $600, non-refundable." His jaw tightened. He was mentally subtracting $600 from the theft he was planning. It was exquisite to watch. "Aurora, you should have asked me." "600? But I'm your wife," I said, batting my eyelashes innocently. "Isn't my money your money? And your money my money?" He forced a smile, a painful grimace that didn't reach his eyes. "Speaking of budget," I said, reaching for his phone which sat on the nightstand. "I wanted to take a picture of our breakfast, but my phone died. Can I use yours?" "Sure," he said, distracted by the lobster. I took his phone. I pretended to fumble with it, my fingers slippery with condensation from the champagne glass. Oops. The phone slipped from my hand and landed with a splash into the silver ice bucket, chilling the champagne. "You what?" He scrambled out of bed, diving for the bucket. "Oh my God, I'm so clumsy." I squealed, pressing my hands to my cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Damien, it just slipped." He fished the phone out, dripping wet. "Aurora, this is the new model. Put it in rice, I suggested helpfully. I read that in a blog. I hadn't dropped it by accident, of course, and I knew the water resistance would probably save the device itself. But while he was sleeping earlier, I had already gone into his settings and disabled the fingerprint ID and Face ID, changing the passcode to something I knew he would never guess my birthday. Now, with the water accident, he would be forced to reset his settings or use a backup, giving me a window of chaos. But more importantly, it established the narrative. Aurora is clumsy. Aurora is an idiot. Aurora is tap water. He spent the rest of the morning trying to dry his phone with a hairdryer, muttering under his breath. I sat on the balcony, eating his lobster, and texting Harper on my own phone. Phase 1 complete. He thinks I'm a financial liability. We move to the condo tomorrow. Harper replied instantly. Papers are ready. The insurance waiver is in a menacing red folder. Good luck, Agent Tapwater. I smiled. The game was afoot. We moved into the Gold Coast condo 2 days later. The place was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the expanse of Lake Michigan, marble floors, and a kitchen that cost more than Damien's annual salary. Of course, he walked around like he was the king of the castle, puffing his chest out. That's when I turned the dial up to 10. Lorraine came over to inspect the place the very next afternoon. She walked in like she was the landlady, running her finger over the countertops, checking for dust. This place is adequate, she criticized, wrinkling her nose. But the view is blocked by that other tower, and it's dusty. Aurora, you need to be more diligent. A dusty house is a sign of a lazy mind. Oh, Lorraine, I'm so glad you're here, I exclaimed, grabbing her arm. I decided to do laundry to surprise Damien, but this machine is so complicated. It has so many buttons. I led her to the laundry room. Inside the high-tech washing machine, churning in hot water and heavy-duty bleach, was her prized possession, a vintage cashmere coat she had left at Damien's bachelor pad, which I had helpfully brought over to clean. Is that my coat? Lorraine shrieked, her voice cracking. Yes. It looked a bit dingy, so I wanted to surprise you by cleaning it, I beamed. I used the sanitize setting. That gets all the germs out, right? She ripped the machine open. Scalding water spilled everywhere. She pulled out a soggy, shrunken lump of beige wool that looked like a wet poodle. You idiot, she screamed, her face turning a mottled red. This is vintage cashmere. It's dry clean only. This coat costs $3,000. Oh no, I started crying fake hysterical tears. I just wanted to help. The tag was so small. I can't read French. Damien ran in, panic in his eyes. What's happening? She ruined my coat, Lorraine yelled, shaking the wet lump at him. Look at this, she boiled it. I'm sorry, I wailed, burying my face in Damien's chest, wiping my tears on his shirt. I'm just a simple girl. I don't know about fancy coats. I thought I was being a good wife. Damien looked at his mother, then at me. He was furious, his jaw working side to side, but he remembered the plan. He had to keep me happy for a year to get the condo. He couldn't scream at me yet. It's okay, Mom, he said through gritted teeth. It was an accident. Aurora didn't know. She's a liability, Lorraine hissed, storming out with her wet, ruined coat. Fix this, Damien. That night, while Damien was seething on the couch, staring at the TV without really watching it, I brought out the paperwork Harper had prepared. Honey, I said, sniffling loudly. I feel so bad about the coat. I want to make sure I don't mess anything else up. The insurance company sent this over today. I handed him the red folder. What is it? He snapped. They said because the condo is high value, the liability policy is huge. Like, 2,000 a month huge, I lied effortlessly. But, I paused for effect, looking down at my hands. If you sign this waiver saying you're not the primary owner, the premium drops by $500 a month. Since I caused you to lose money today with your mom's coat, I thought saving money here would help. Damien's eyes lit up at $500 a month. Greed was his Achilles heel. Let me see. He skimmed it. It was thick, full of legal jargon. Harper had stuffed in there to make it boring. He saw the words insurance liability waiver at the top, which Harper had cleverly bolded, and completely missed the paragraph about relinquishing all marital claims to real property in perpetuity. Yeah, okay, he said, grabbing a pen. At least you're trying to fix your mess. God, Aurora, you really need to be more careful. He signed it. I watched the ink dry. Click. The trap snapped shut. Over the next 2 weeks, I was a tornado of incompetence. I cooked dinner every night, but I accidentally used salt instead of sugar in his morning coffee. I accidentally shrank his favorite cashmere sweater's revenge for Lorraine's coat. I forgot to pay the internet bill, so he couldn't play his video games for 3 days. I was driving him insane. And the more annoyed he got, the more he ran to Tiffany. I tracked him. My PI father had installed a GPS on Damien's car. Every time Damien said he was working late at the site, he was actually at Tiffany's apartment in the suburbs. One morning, while Damien was in the shower, washing off the stress of living with me, I rummaged through his gym bag, the one he took to work but actually took to Tiffany's. Inside, hidden in a side pocket, was a crumpled receipt from a pharmacy. Prenatal vitamins. Date, yesterday. Purchaser, Damien Thorne. Got you. I pocketed the receipt and sat on the edge of the tub, listening to the water run. The anger was a cold, hard stone in my stomach. They were starting a family while planning to destroy mine. It was time for the next step. It was time for the dinner party. Damien, I called out, knocking on the shower door. Honey, I have a great idea. Let's have a dinner party to apologize to your mom. And we should invite Tiffany too. Work was brutal today, Damien sighed, collapsing onto the sofa a week later. He smelled of vanilla Tiffany's cheap perfume, not sawdust or construction site grit. You know, baby, maybe this dinner party isn't a good idea. You're not exactly a master chef. I'll practice, I promised, massaging his shoulders, digging my thumbs in just a little too hard. Please, Damien. I want to show them I can be the perfect wife. Let's invite everyone. Lorraine, her sister, and Tiffany. She's your best friend, right? She shouldn't be alone on Saturday. He smirked. I knew exactly what he was thinking. Let her embarrass herself. It'll make the divorce narrative easier. Everyone will see she's incompetent. Fine, he said. Next Saturday, but don't screw it up. I won't, I smiled. It'll be a night no one will ever forget. On the day of the party, Harper came over while Damien was at work. In reality, we weren't just prepping vegetables. We were installing tiny, high-definition cameras in the living room and dining room. You sure about this? Harper asked, checking the feed on her tablet. The image was crystal clear. It's going to be brutal. You're walking into a lion's den. I need witnesses, I said, chopping onions with aggressive precision. I need them to say the worst things possible on camera, and I need to confirm the pregnancy visually before I strike. I had gone to the store and bought the cheapest, lowest quality ingredients I could find: fatty ground beef, wilted vegetables, and a box of red wine that cost $9. I prepared a roast that was destined to be rubbery, mashed potatoes full of lumps, and a salad that was mostly iceberg lettuce stems. The guests started arriving at 6 p.m. Lorraine walked in first, wearing a brand new designer dress that I suspected was bought with the wedding reimbursement money Damien had secretly transferred to her. "Well," she sniffed, looking around the pristine condo. "At least you swept the floor this time." "Welcome, Lorraine," I chirped, handing her a glass of the cheap boxed wine. She took a sip and gagged. "What is this? Vinegar?" "It's an artisanal blend," I lied smoothly. "Very earthy." Then came Tiffany. She walked in holding Damien's arm a little too tightly. She was wearing a loose-fitting silk dress, trying to hide her small bump, but I saw the way she subconsciously rested her hand on her stomach. "Hi, Aurora," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "House looks cozy." "Hi, Tiffany. So glad you could come." "You're glowing," I said, staring directly at her midsection. She flinched and pulled her hand away. Damien stepped between us, nervous energy radiating off him. "Okay, let's get drinks. I'm starving." I went to the kitchen to fetch the feast. As I worked, I put in my wireless earbud, listening to the monitor from the living room camera. "God, this wine is swill," Lorraine's voice came through. "I can't believe he married her, even for the money." "Shh, Mom," Damien whispered. "Just a few more months. Then we get the condo, sell it, and we get the big house in the suburbs." "I hate hiding it," Tiffany whined. "My back hurts. I want to be able to post pictures of us. The baby is kicking." "Soon, babe. As soon as we kick the tap water back to the rental market," Damien laughed. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the granite counter. My knuckles turned white. Tap water. I took a deep breath. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the special seasoning I had prepared. It wasn't poison, I wasn't a criminal, but it was a very liberal amount of salt and vinegar for the gravy. "Dinner is served," I called out cheerfully. We all sat down. "So, Aurora," Lorraine started, stabbing at the rubbery meat. "Damien tells us you're thinking of taking a cooking class. Clearly, you haven't started yet." The table erupted in laughter. Damien chuckled along, squeezing Tiffany's hand under the table. "Actually," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "great acting. If I did say so myself. I tried really hard on this." "Trying isn't doing, honey," Tiffany said, smirking. "Some women are just built to be wives, and some aren't." "Is that right?" I asked, looking her dead in the eye. "And what makes a good wife, Tiffany? Sleeping with someone else's husband?" The table went silent. "Excuse me?" Tiffany gasped. "Oh, sorry," I laughed nervously. "I meant, being supportive. Pass the potatoes." Damien glared at me. "Aurora, don't be weird." "I'm not being weird," I said, standing up to pour more wine. I moved towards Tiffany. "I just admire your friendship. It's so close." I tripped on the rug. The pitcher of red wine flew out of my hands. It wasn't a splash, it was a deluge. The red liquid soaked Tiffany's silk dress, clinging instantly to her stomach, revealing the unmistakable, round curve of a baby bump. "Ah!" she screamed, jumping up. "Oh my God," I shouted. "I'm so clumsy." "You stupid bitch," Tiffany yelled, forgetting her act. "Look what you did. This is silk." "Calm down, Tiffany," Damien yelled, rushing to her side, grabbing napkins to dab her stomach frantically. "Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" Silence. Absolute, total silence. Damien froze. He realized what he had just said. He slowly turned to look at me. Lorraine looked at me. Tiffany looked at me. I wasn't crying. I wasn't apologizing. I was standing at the head of the table, and for the first time in months, the clumsy, simple Aurora was gone. The air in the room was so thick you could choke on it. The words, "Is the baby okay?" hung suspended between us like a grenade that had just had the pin pulled. Damien's face went from panic to pale terror. He stammered. I meant, she's, Damien means. Lorraine interjected loudly, standing up to shield her son. Is she okay? You know how fragile Tiffany is. You clumsy idiot, Aurora. Look at this mess. She pointed a long, accusatory finger at me. You are useless. Useless. You can't cook. You can't clean. And now you're assaulting our guests. I told Damien he was making a mistake marrying trash like you. Usually, this was the part where I would cower. Instead, I picked up my napkin and calmly wiped a drop of wine from my hand. Sit down, Lorraine, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was cold, absolute zero. Excuse me? Lorraine blinked, shocked by the tone. I said, sit down. I looked at Damien. And you? Get away from her stomach. We all know what's in there. Aurora, you're drunk, Damien said, trying to regain control. He puffed out his chest, using his man-of-the-house voice. Go to your room, we'll discuss this later. No, we'll discuss it now, I said. I walked over to the sideboard where the stereo system was connected. I picked up the microphone Damien used for karaoke. What are you doing? Tiffany hissed, clutching her wine-soaked dress. You're crazy. Maybe, I smiled. Crazy rich. They looked confused. You see, I began, pacing slowly around the table, like a shark circling a sinking boat. For the last month, I've listened to you all. I've listened to Lorraine call me a peasant. I've listened to Damien call me tap water. I've listened to Tiffany laugh about how she's going to redecorate my nursery. You were listening? Damien asked, his voice trembling. Oh, honey. I was doing a lot more than listening. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled receipt for the prenatal vitamins. I slammed it onto the table. Purchased by Damien Thorne. Prenatal vitamins. Damien's mouth opened and closed like a fish. And this, I pulled out the insurance waiver he had signed. Do you remember this, Damien? The insurance thing? It's a post-nuptial agreement, I said clearly. In it, you voluntarily waived all rights to this property. You admitted that 100% of the funds used to purchase it were mine, and you have no claim to it in the event of a divorce. You signed away the condo, Damien. You signed away your golden ticket for $500 a month. Lorraine's face turned purple. You tricked him. That won't hold up in court. Oh, it will, I said. My lawyer Harper, you know, the one you thought was just a friend, is actually a senior partner at Darby and Associates. She ironclad that document. Who cares? Tiffany yelled. Damien is leaving you anyway. He loves me. We're going to be a family, and you're going to be alone with your books. Am I? I laughed. Damien, tell them where you got the money for Tiffany's car, and for Lorraine's new dress, and for this wedding reimbursement. Damien was sweating profusely now. I saved it from my commissions. No, I said. You stole it from Vanguard Energy accounts. You inflated invoices. You thought nobody would notice because Vanguard is a huge company. So what? Lorraine screamed. Vanguard doesn't know. I walked over to the front door. I placed my hand on the knob. That's the funniest part, I said, looking back at them. You guys really didn't do a background check on me, did you? You assumed Aurora was just Aurora, a library assistant. What are you talking about? Damien whispered. My last name isn't just Sterling, I said. It's Sterling Vanguard. My father is William Sterling, the CEO and owner of Vanguard Energy. The silence this time was heavy. It was the sound of three worlds colliding and shattering simultaneously. Lorraine grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. No, that's a lie. Your father is a pensioner in Florida. He's in Florida right now, I nodded. On his yacht. Damien looked like he was going to faint. He had been stealing from his wife's father. He had been calling the heiress to the company he worked for. Tap water. You're the heiress? Damien squeaked. Yes, I said. And the only reason I didn't fire you immediately was because I wanted to see how deep the rot went. And wow, you guys are rotten to the core. Aurora baby. Damien took a step forward, his hands up. Wait, we can explain. I was confused. Mom made me. Don't you dare blame your mother. It's too late for explanations, I said. I have the embezzlement records. I have the audio of you conspiring to defraud me. I have the proof of adultery. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. And just so we're clear, I didn't act alone. The front door burst open. Heavy boots thudded against the hardwood floor. Blue lights flashed through the front window, bouncing off the walls of the condo they thought they owned. Harper walked in first. She wasn't wearing pajamas this time. She was in a razor-sharp charcoal suit, holding a leather folder like a weapon. Behind her were two uniformed officers and a detective I recognized from my father's security detail, Detective Miller. Damien Thorne, Detective Miller announced, his voice booming. You are under arrest. Damien scrambled up, knocking his chair over. Arrest for what? I didn't do anything. It's a domestic dispute, Lorraine shrieked. Not for the adultery, Mr. Thorne, Harper said, stepping forward with a smile that could cut glass. Though that is grounds for the immediate divorce filing I have right here. No. You're under arrest for grand larceny, corporate embezzlement, and fraud against Vanguard Energy. Get them out of my house, I said to the officers, my voice tired but firm. As the officers grabbed Damien, he looked back at me, tears streaming down his face. Aurora, please, talk to your dad. I'm scared of jail. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The handsome face I had fallen in love with now just looked pathetic. A weak man who tried to play a strong man's game and lost. I'm sorry, Damien, I said softly, but tap water doesn't have the authority to stop a criminal investigation. You did this to yourself. Wait. Lorraine shrieked as the officers moved towards Damien. You can't do this. I am a respectable woman. I'm the president of the Elmwood Garden Club. You can't arrest my son. Detective Miller turned his gaze to her, his expression bored. We're not just here for him, Mrs. Thorne. What? Lorraine froze, her hand halfway to her pearl necklace. We audited the accounts, I said, leaning against the table, watching the woman who had called me a simpleton crumble. Damien didn't just spend the stolen money. He transferred a significant portion to a shell company called LT Consulting. Lorraine Thorne Consulting. I provided services, she stammered, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped rat. You provided invoices for industrial piping that was never delivered, Harper interjected, opening her folder. And we have the text messages, where you instructed Damien on how to structure the deposits to avoid IRS flagging. That makes you an accessory to grand larceny and a co-conspirator in money laundering. No, Lorraine whispered, the blood draining from her face. Cuff her, Miller ordered. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut on Lorraine's wrists was the most beautiful symphony I had ever heard. As they dragged Damien towards the door, he looked back at me one last time. The entitlement was gone, replaced by pure terror. Aurora, he pleaded. I love you. Don't let them take me, you know I have asthma. I'm sorry, Damien, I said coldly. They were hauled out, leaving only the wreckage of the dinner party behind. And Tiffany was standing in the corner, shivering in her wine-stained dress, clutching her stomach. She was the only one not in handcuffs. You have 5 minutes to leave, I told her. But he promised me, she whispered, looking at the empty doorway. He said he would take care of us. He promised me too, I said, walking over to her. He's a liar, Tiffany. You're just the next victim. Take your purse, take your lies. If you're not out in 5 minutes, I'm pressing charges for trespassing. She scrambled up, slipping on her heels, and ran out the door without looking back. The room fell silent. I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of the terrible dinner, the overturned chairs, and the echo of justice. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with adrenaline. Harper walked over and squeezed my shoulder. You did it, she said. The rat trap snapped. The following months were a blur of legal motions, while Damien sat in a holding cell, unable to make bail because his assets were frozen. I went to work erasing him from my life. I didn't want the condo anymore. It was tainted by their greed. I hired a crew to pack up everything. As for Damien's things, his clothes, his gaming console, his collection of sneakers bought with Vanguard money, I didn't burn them. That would have been dramatic, but illegal. Instead, I had them boxed up and sent to the only address he had left, Lorraine's house. But Lorraine wasn't there. It turned out her high society life was a house of cards. With the legal fees mounting and the sudden cutoff of Damien's stolen funds, the bank foreclosed on her home within weeks. Then came the sentencing. My father, William Sterling, took the stand. He didn't shout. He stood tall, looking every inch the titan of industry he was. Trust is the currency of business, Dad said, his voice resonating in the courtroom. Mr. Thorne didn't just steal money, he stole trust. He entered my family under false pretenses, targeted my daughter, and used Vanguard energy as his personal piggy bank. He is a predator who got caught. Damien got 5 years. Lorraine got 2 years for money laundering, largely because she turned state's witness against her own son to save her skin. That was the final betrayal. Lorraine threw Damien under the bus, claiming he forced her to launder the money. I watched Damien's face as his mother testified against him. The look of utter devastation was almost enough to make me pity him. Almost. I walked out of the courthouse a free woman. I was divorced, I was single. I was 30 years old. I got into my car, my real car this time. A sleek Mercedes convertible I had kept in storage. I put the top down. As I drove away, leaving the courthouse and the Thorne family in the rearview mirror, I felt lighter than I had in years. The dusty, fearful girl under the bed was gone. In her place was a woman forged in fire. But the fire had left burns, and healing those burns would take much longer than the revenge. 3 years passed. Revenge is like a sugar rush, intense, satisfying but followed by a crash. After the adrenaline of destroying Damien and Lorraine faded, I was left with the quiet wreckage of my own trust issues. I threw myself into work. I stopped hiding who I was. I joined Vanguard Energy officially, not as a library assistant, but as the director of operations. I wore my name, Aurora Sterling, like armor. I worked 16-hour days, turning Vanguard into an even bigger empire. I became known as the Ice Queen in the boardroom, efficient, brilliant, and utterly unapproachable. Dating? Forget about it. Men were liabilities. Every time a man smiled at me, I wondered what he wanted. Did he see me? Or did he see the bank account? Did he see a partner? Or did he see tap water, something easy to consume and discard? My only solace was music. I had played piano as a child, but I had stopped when I met Damien because he said classical music was boring. Now, I bought a Steinway Grand for my new house. a modern glass sanctuary overlooking the river, far away from the tainted Gold Coast condo. Every night, I played Chopin, Rachmaninoff, Debussy. I poured my anger, my grief, and my loneliness into the keys. One evening, my father convinced me to attend a charity gala for the arts. I didn't want to go. I hated these events: fake smiles, expensive champagne, and people pitching business ideas. "Just 1 hour, Aurora," Dad said, adjusting his tuxedo. "It's for the symphony. You love the symphony." So, I went. I stood in the corner, nursing a sparkling water, checking emails on my phone, waiting for the polite amount of time to pass before I could escape. "You look like you'd rather be getting a root canal," a voice said next to me. I stiffened. My Ice Queen mask slammed into place. I turned slowly. Standing there was a man, tall, broad shoulders, wearing a tuxedo that fit well but looked slightly lived in. He had messy dark hair and eyes that were the color of warm amber. "Actually," I said coldly, "I'd prefer an audit. Root canals take too long." He laughed. It wasn't a polite society laugh. It was a deep, genuine sound that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I'm Julian," he said, extending a hand. "I'm the architect who designed the new wing of the museum. I'm currently hiding from a donor who wants to discuss the feng shui of the bathrooms." I hesitated, then shaken his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and rough, calloused. These were hands that worked, not just hands that signed checks. "Aurora," I said briefly. "Well, Aurora, since we're both hiding, do you want to see something cool? The acoustics in the main hall are incredible when it's empty." Against my better judgment, I followed him. We snuck into the main concert hall during the intermission. The stage was empty, save for a lone grand piano. "Go on," Julian said, gesturing to the piano. "I saw your fingers twitching while the quartet was playing. You play, don't you?" I haven't played in public in years. "There's no public here, just me and the ghosts of Mozart." I sat down, I touched the keys, and I played. I played a nocturne that was full of longing and sorrow. The music swelled, filling the vast, empty hall, echoing off the wood and velvet. I closed my eyes, forgetting where I was, forgetting the betrayal, forgetting the fear. When I finished, silence hung in the air. I opened my eyes. Julian was watching me. He wasn't looking at my jewelry. He wasn't looking at my dress. He was looking at my face with an expression of raw wonder. "That was," he started, his voice thick with emotion. "That was the saddest, most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "Who hurt you, Aurora?" The question was so direct, so unexpected, that I flinched. "That's none of your business," I snapped, standing up abruptly. The walls came back up. "I have to go." "Wait," he called out as I hurried off the stage. "Let me take you to dinner. Real dinner, not these tiny appetizers." "No," I said, walking faster. "I don't date." "I'm not asking for a date," he said, jogging to catch up. "I'm asking to know the person who can make a piano cry like that." I stopped. I looked at him. He seemed sincere, but Damien had seemed sincere too. "I can't," I whispered. "I really can't." I ran out of the gala like Cinderella, but instead of leaving a glass slipper, I left behind the first crack in my armor. Julian didn't give up. He didn't send flowers or jewelry. The next day, a package arrived at my office. It wasn't a diamond necklace. It was a small, hand-carved wooden music box. The note read, "For the music, no strings attached, J." I wound it up. It played the same nocturne I had played the night before. I traced the rough wood of the box. No strings. Maybe, Just maybe. I could let one string loose. Life has a funny way of circling back just when you think you've outrun it. 5 years had passed since the divorce. I was 35. Julian and I were married, living in a bliss that was boring in the best possible way. We had a daughter, Lily, who was 2 years old and had my father's stubborn chin and Julian's amber eyes. One rainy afternoon, I was walking out of the Vanguard Energy headquarters. My driver was waiting with an umbrella, but I stopped. A woman was standing near the entrance of the parking garage, arguing with security. She looked old, decades older than her years. Her coat was thin and patched. She was holding a cleaning bucket. "I just need to speak to her," the woman yelled, her voice raspy. I recognized that voice. It lacked the imperious snap it once had, but the pitch was the same. "Lorraine," I whispered. She turned. When she saw me in my tailored suit, glowing with health and success, her shoulders slumped. "Aurora," she croaked. "I'm not here for a job. I'm here to beg." Lorraine Thorne, begging. The irony was almost too rich to digest. Beg for what? It's the boy, Noah, Tiffany's son. He's 5. "Tiffany?" I asked. "She took off 2 years ago. Met a trucker, left the kid with me, said she didn't want the baggage." Lorraine looked down at her worn shoes. "Noah has leukemia. We don't have insurance. Damien is still inside. I'm cleaning houses, but it's not enough. I know you hate us. But Noah is innocent." I stood there, looking at this broken woman. I remembered the night under the bed. Aurora is tap water. I felt a surge of old anger. Why should I help? This was the child conceived in betrayal. But then I thought of Lily, warm and safe in her crib. I thought of my father, William, who never punched down. "I won't give you money," I said coldly. Lorraine flinched. "Because I don't trust you. But tell me the name of the hospital. If the boy is there, Vanguard Energy will cover his treatment anonymously. We'll label it a grant." Lorraine dropped to her knees on the wet pavement, sobbing. "Get up, Lorraine," I said, stepping back. "I'm not an angel. I'm just a mother. And tell Damien. Actually, tell him nothing." But Damien found out. A month later, I received a notification from the Department of Corrections. He requested a call regarding medical disclosure. I accepted, mostly out of curiosity. "Aurora," his voice was rough over the phone line. "Mom told me about Noah. Thank you. I did it for the boy," I said. "I know. Look, I have to tell you something. To clear my conscience." He took a breath. "You remember how you wanted a baby? How you were worried you were infertile?" "Yes," I said, my grip tightening on the receiver. "You weren't infertile, Rory." "Mom." She crushed up emergency contraceptive pills. "She put them in your smoothies. She said if you got pregnant, we couldn't divorce you easily. She didn't want your DNA mixed with ours." The room spun. It wasn't just greed. It was a biological violation. They had poisoned me to ensure I wouldn't bear a child. "You monster," I hissed. "It is a blessing, Damien, because my children will never have a single drop of your poisonous blood in their veins. Rot in there." I slammed the phone down and collapsed. Julian found me later, shaking. He held me while I cried, not for the loss, but for the relief. I was finally, truly clean of them. 10 years later, I was the CEO of Vanguard Energy now. My father had passed away peacefully a year ago, leaving the empire in my hands. Julian and I were sitting on the patio of our summer home on Lake Geneva. "Mom," Lily said, looking up from her phone. She was 15 now, smart, sharp, but with a romantic streak that terrified me. Can I invite Tyler over for the weekend? He's my new boyfriend. Tyler? I asked. The one who forgot his wallet at the movies last week? He's just forgetful, Mom. He says he loves that I'm not obsessed with money like other girls. The alarm bells in my head rang so loud they were deafening. He loves that I'm not obsessed with money. It was the Predator's opening line. It was exactly what Damien had said. Invite him, I said. I'd love to meet him. When Tyler arrived, he was polite. Too polite. He complimented the house, the cars, the art. During dinner, I decided to run an experiment. Tyler, I said casually, Lily tells me you're looking for a summer internship. Yes, Mrs. Sterling Vanguard, he smiled. I'd love to learn from the best. Well, we have an opening. Manual labor. Pouring concrete. 5 a.m. Starts. Minimum wage. It builds character. I watched his face. The smile faltered. Oh, I was thinking maybe something in strategy? I'm not really a manual labor kind of guy. Strategy requires understanding the foundation, Julian added, sipping his wine. I laid bricks for 3 years before I drew a blueprint. Tyler looked at Lily. Babe, didn't you say your mom could get me a hookup? Pouring concrete is kind of beneath me, don't you think? We're, elite. The silence at the table was heavy. I think you should leave, Tyler, Lily said quietly. What? Leave, she said, her voice firm. My grandfather poured concrete. My dad laid bricks. If you think work is beneath you, then I'm above you. Tyler left in a huff. Lily came over and hugged me. You knew, didn't you? I suspected. I kissed her forehead. Always watch how they treat the work, not the reward. She didn't need me to hide under a bed. She had learned the lesson through osmosis. I walked down to the edge of the water. Julian was there, trying to teach our 10-year-old son how to fly a kite. The wind was strong, whipping off the lake. Look, Val, Julian yelled, using his special nickname for me. It's flying! The kite soared high into the wind, fighting the resistance, climbing higher and higher, until it caught the current and stabilized, dancing against the clouds. I took a deep breath of the fresh air. They had called me tap water. They meant it as an insult, something plain, something free. But they forgot one thing about water. Water is patient. Water cuts through rock. And when enough water comes together, it becomes an ocean that can sink any ship. I am Aurora Sterling. I am a mother. I am a CEO. I am a wife. And I am the woman who didn't let the prank be on her. I see it, I yelled back to my husband. It's beautiful.